welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And today is very fun. In honor of Hitman, we are talking about Netflix rom-coms, which have a bit of a bad reputation, but there's some good ones out there. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner. And of course, I had to have Austin Burke on here to talk about this.
I'm the Netflix guy.
Yeah,
I
you're
watch
the Netflix
everything.
king. That's what I was going to say.
And I mean, to the point of this guy is insane. But you know what, Rachel? I had a lot of rom-coms to add to my letterbox list to talk about this. So I'm very excited. And there's some sleeper movies here. There are some films
that really
that cracked like my top 10 of those respective years. So I'm excited for this.
There's even, I have a couple, or at least I think two that aren't on your list in my top 10 that I hope you'll check out, and that you'll, and vice versa, you know? So I think that will be fun. And what do you think makes for a really good rom-com? What do you look for?
Well, when I was younger, I used to say high school Austin. Big nerd, weird guy. I used to say, I don't like rom-coms because they all do the same thing. It's the same repetitive formula, and they all end the same way, right? But then I actually started to check out the genre and get into some of these movies that keep the same formula and keep the things that people love about the genre intact. But there's always a spin or a twist, or all it takes sometimes, just two really likable leads. I mean, really, a lot of this comes down to the charisma of the people involved and occasionally the creativity within the writing. And so if you have a sweet script, a smart script, even if it's formulaic, and 2, 3, 4 compelling leads, a lot of the times you can create something that people go back to and people fall in love with and people are able to relate to. But there's also, the addition of you have to have something about the romance that sparks, like whether it's the steaminess or the sweet, genuine scenes or those moments like at the end of The Notebook where everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's like you have to have something like that. So a hook, a spark, but then really compelling people involved. And I think there are some on Netflix that have a mix of all of those things or a couple of those things that really, really stand out. And so I've really grown to love rom-coms over the years. And we're going to talk about one that's actually not even on Netflix, that's coming out in a couple of weeks on Netflix. That is the perfect example of that. And so I'm very, very excited to talk about these films.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of a formula film kind of has a bad connotation, a negative connotation to it. But all that's saying is that we have, over the years, we've been making movies now for over 100 years, we have figured out what elements tend to work in a story and which ones don't. And so a formula is just saying, this is what people like, and this is why. And then it's all about how do you execute that formula. And so the banter, the chemistry, the two key elements and it can be something, I mean, that's why I mean, I am somebody that can handle repetition more than most. Like that's why I can watch 125 Christmas movies and have no problem in a season. So, that's a unique thing that I can do. But even so, the thing that separates the good ones from the bad ones is kind of what do they bring to that experience? Like what's the chemistry? Am I rooting for the couple? Am I laughing or am I crying if it's a Nicholas Sparksian type of story? How invested am I in the characters? And there have been some legit good ones on Netflix for sure, which has been fun. But before we dive into the good ones, we're going to talk a little bit about the not so good ones.
This is my favorite part.
And I think I've been exposed to some bad ones that I know you haven't been exposed to. So you've been blessed.
I mean, and for me, and I feel like this is like a repetitive thing for me because a lot of my worst Netflix rom-coms are all in these little trilogies, or it's a series of bad movies, and a lot of them have the same people involved, the same writers and actors, and those are the ones that look into the formula but don't tweak it. They don't do anything that stands out, and a lot of this for me, it comes down to the script, and that's kind of the reoccurring theme with my bottom 5, bottom 10 is the script just doesn't stack up. And if you can't, not even relate, if you can't get emotionally attached, the genre at that point just becomes, you put it on in the background. You don't pay attention, pay any mind to it. So,
and we're talking about the movies that Netflix has actually like commissioned. They've actually made, not like an Anyone But You or, you know, something like that they're airing on Netflix. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Is your worst in your, or your first one you want to talk about, your bottom 5?
Well, this to me, I mean, there's 3 that are very close, but this for me was always the one that it was the worst example of the worst possible thing that you can do. And that is remake a film that's kind of beloved. They put a spin on it, but they put a spin on it that took it in a worse direction. That's He's All That with Addison Rae, who is the TikTok star, correct? Something like that. And then
Star
Tanner
Buchanan.
Just the TikTok star. And then Tanner Buchanan, who I actually really like. I've seen him in other things. He's been very good. And then you got Madison Pettis, who obviously I had a connection to growing up. I really liked her in some movies and things like that. But this is one of the worst, most incohesive, jumbled up. I can't find anything to do with these character scripts I've ever seen. But the worst part is the lack of chemistry between the 2 leads. I mean, the chemistry between these 2 is absolutely terrible. Some of that could have to do with Addison Rae's lack of experience. And I think that's part of it. Some of the line reading was abysmal. The other thing is, at the end of the film, Matthew Lillard's in this movie. That's what they do at the end of this movie. They couldn't find a way to end it. And so you get all of this buildup for absolutely nothing. And that not only offended fans of the original She's All That, but it took all the new people and said, and I think most of them did say, wow, they didn't know what to do with this, did they? Was this just a vehicle for Addison Rae? What do you think, Rachel? Was this just a vehicle for Addison Rae?
What they were thinking? I didn't even finish it. I just couldn't with this. It's just, you only have so many hours in your life. I just couldn't, I couldn't do it.
It's abysmal.
Even at 1.5, I couldn't do it. He's all that. It was, I mean, it was just the quality of the acting, and you felt bad for Rachel Cook. You're like, what did you do to deserve this?
Yes, 100%. And the people involved that have a lot of talent. I'm like, what are you all?
And to be frank,
Matthew Lillard,
She's All That actually does not hold up really at all. It is really mean-spirited, and
I'm sure,
I was just like, wow, this is just not. And so, like, there's room for improvement. This is not like a hallowed vessel, that like you can't.
You could have made this. You could have taken the formula from the first, spun it in this direction, had a better cast and a better script, and made this. Oh, I'm glad they remade that.
Right. Yeah.
So what happened? Like, what was?
It was bad. Well, to say my lowest one, and I actually know the director of this movie, and he's amazing. But so no shade in that regard. But I have to. the worst has got to be a little movie called I Believe in Santa. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh no, I don't think I watched that
my
one.
gosh.
No.
Okay, so it's wild. It's so this woman, she meets this man, and the thing is that you think it's gonna be like Miracle on 34th Street because he believes in Santa Claus. Not that, like, I thought the big reveal was going to be that he was Santa Claus and this was like Elf or something, you know what I mean? Like something like that.
Okay.
I mean, any kids listening, I'm sorry. But
wait, you mean Santa's not real, Rich?
Yeah.
Come on now.
He really believes and in Santa, that Santa's real. And the whole thing in the movie is that, like, anybody who questions that or is upset by that is like a horrible person. And it is one of the strangest movies. And the thing is that the leads are like a married couple in real life. So you think they'd have like amazing chemistry. The whole thing is like so awkward. You're just like,
so they don't?
No, not great. No.
Wow.
And like, you're just like, you need to run. This man is scary. Like, you need to leave.
No. Oh no.
This thing could be studied in bad Christmas movie. It's like, it's really
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's wild. So yeah, you should. It's one of those ones that you watch. It actually did really well. Like, it was like the top movie for that week or whatever when it came out. And I'm convinced it was just people that were like, this can't be real. This character really believes in Santa. And like, it's just like, thing that's just interesting because there's almost no whimsy to it. It's not like gotta believe Virginia, kind of a thing. No. It's treated like very seriously, and like he should not be questioned, or like everybody who questions it is like a villain. So
what in the world?
Yeah, I believe in Santa.
I will say though, it is maybe the most appropriately titled movie I've ever seen. I believe in Santa. Like that. All right, you've nailed the premise. I think from that title. Yeah, I think I actually remember seeing that as the top watched movie on Netflix that specific weekend, which I did not want to watch it just by seeing the premise, but I was like, yeah, this is interesting. This is very interesting. So yeah, it's always funny when you see these. I think He's All That was also the #1 movie for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, people, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I get it.
It's bad.
People become curious, I think, at that point. Yeah.
In fact, it's actually the producer that I know, not the director, but the producer, he said, hey, do you want to like interview the cast and crew? And I was just like, sorry, no offense. No. I'm sure they tried their hardest, but it wasn't for me.
It's always the worst when you have to say that to someone involved, or even Netflix sending them a review. It's like, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. Who you have next?
And so I'm going to group this lovely series of films into one little category here because they're both in my bottom 5, and that is franchise by the name of Tall Girl. Have you ever watched Tall Girl, Rachel?
I didn't watch the sequel though.
Oh well, let me tell you, they really. I didn't think it could get any worse. Actually, I did, because there were maybe 1 or 2 things about the first Tall Girl that I was actually like, okay, like Griffin Gluck. Griffin Gluck was an American Vandal. He was a great actor in that show. Yeah. And he was really charming. His like love for this character, and you could kind of see why he felt the way he felt in the first movie. But then the second movie comes along and they completely change everyone's dynamic. And of course, the main relationship from the first movie is not going well, and they add in these new characters. And I won't say the performers who play the 2 new characters. You could look it up. It was 2 of the worst performances I have ever seen in a romantic comedy. And rough. I think it's more when these rom-coms are dealing with high school that I'm less on board with them, because I'm actually finding that as my entire bottom 5 is all high school rom-coms. And maybe that's just the mindset of, we're not gonna last.
There's a lot of bad ones.
There's a lot of bad ones. But then, and we'll talk about our top 10, you've got great examples like To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and I'm like, man, That's how you do it. Special characters, special relationships. Tall Girl is the exact opposite, but it's the main premise that I had an issue with. It's like, yes, she's tall. That is a thing that people deal with, but the way that they handle that in the movie, I'm like, this is just very unrealistic. And at least back in my day, when I was in high school, kids wouldn't act like this. They would act in different ways, and maybe it's very different today, but they would not act like you are seeing it in this movie. And so at that point, it almost becomes fantastical. It almost becomes so realistic that the grounded nature of what was supposed to be the premise becomes unbelievable. And if you can't buy that with a movie titled Tall Girl, well, then everything else is just kind of, it becomes an afterthought. And that's what these movies felt like for me. It's just so poorly handled. The relationships completely fall apart in the sequel, and I didn't really like any of the characters. And that's a big deal with a movie. If you don't like the characters and you don't have good writing, it becomes nothing.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the latest from Harpeth Road Press and best-selling author Jenny Hale, The Golden Hour. After the loss of her single father, Josie Wills is forced to give up her dreams and return home to take care of her autistic teenage brother, Nick. But she doesn't just leave her dreams behind, she also has to leave her real first love, Julian Russell. The Golden Hour is a powerful, heartwarming story that will have you believing in the power of love and the perfect accompaniment to your summer vacation plans. You can pick up The Golden Hour wherever you purchase your books or using the affiliate link below. Find out more about Jenny Hale and all the books from Harpeth Road Press at harpethroad.com. That's harpethroad.com.
Number 19 is, I admit, like a competently made movie as far as like cinematography and whatever, but like I hate it so much. It's Netflix's 2022 version of Persuasion. And I was really looking forward to this. And the trailers, if you're an Austinite, like everybody was freaking out. They were like, this looks so bad. And I was like, come on, people. Dakota Johnson, she's like a quality actress, you know, it's not going to be that bad. It was that bad. They were all right.
Really?
And, the thing that made me so mad is that it's not just that they didn't translate the book at all, and it's this classic beloved novel. That's fine. But do something interesting with it. I am somebody who defends Pride and Prejudice and zombies. I liked that. I thought it was kooky and fun. And so I'm by no means a traditionalist, but this character in the book, Anne Elliot, is shy to a fault. She has a very hard time even talking to other people that are outside of her family. She's the whole thing is she's persuadable. She's convinced to reject Wentworth, and so her character makes sense. Here, you have Dakota Johnson literally pouring wine on her head, breaking the fourth wall, talking about how she doesn't care, and these idiot, these things, and you're just like, this is not this. There's no world where this character that you have created would refuse and be persuaded. So it doesn't even make sense. And then they have the gall to make Henry Golding's character, who's the villain of the story, he's trying to, and they make him the hero. He's got the big triumphant wedding, and you have to, because
he's Henry Golding, Rachel.
you have to marry for your heart and go with what, and then they show his wedding as if it's and it was just so bad, and they have no chemistry here at all. And the leads, but it's not their fault because they weren't given any time together. They weren't given any and so it just made me mad because it had all of the ingredients. It could have been good. The costumes are terrible. It just and that, what's worse, something that's just outright bad, or something that should have been good and it sucked, and you poured wine all over one of my favorite novels. And so that makes it extra bad. When you dump on Jane Austen, I'm coming at you. And it's not worse than tall girl. I get it, but it offended me more.
Well, it's almost more offensive because look at that cast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was.
And
yeah,
look at what it's based
exactly.
on. Yes. So I'm with you on that. Sometimes the ones that have more talented people involved fall even more flat on their face because nobody's looking at Tall Girl as, oh, well, that's going to be something. And I'm sure people looked at this movie and they said, that's going to be something.
Right.
Right. And so that's almost more. Yeah, I remember that coming out and I didn't watch it because I heard kind of bad word of mouth. But that's shocking, though, because I didn't know Golding was in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But what do you have next?
And so I think there's a reoccurring theme here. Another high school love story, a trilogy that just kept going and going and going. And I don't have the first Kissing Booth in my bottom 5. It is in my bottom 6, though. It's the entire franchise, Kissing Booths.
I only watched the first one. I hated the first one so much. I'm like, and they were so long. I'm like, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching like a 3-hour Kissing Booth movie, even on 1.5. I'm not going to do it.
It's ridiculous. And well, here's the thing in that I thought, I mean, the first one's bad. It's a bad movie. But here's the thing that I thought kind of stood out about the first one. It is very predictable where it's going to end up. But I think there was just a little something in that spark that they could have explored in the sequels that maybe would have made the sequels better.
Yeah. To me, the Kissing Booth is the classic example of how to do friends to lovers bad, because he is so overprotective of her, and it makes me so uncomfortable that I don't want her anywhere near him. He's not the good guy in this story. And I also was really uncomfortable. I understand that Joey King at the time was not underage, but the character is, and the way the movie was filmed made me really uncomfortable. A lot of like leering shots and a lot of like ways that they kind of sexualized the character that I was just like, this is really gross. And so I didn't like that.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And it also made me perceive Jacob Elordi as a very certain type of, this guy's going to play this character all the time, when that has clearly not been the case, because this guy's career has taken off. And he's even said it himself in interviews. This character that I played in the Kissing Booth did me no favors. It did not do him any favors.
It's one of those things that you change the score and it's a horror movie. I mean, it really is.
And so, but with the sequels, I'm like, maybe they take her character and because she was very annoying in the first movie, they allow her to mature a little bit and maybe make better decisions. And maybe this isn't going to work out because there's another love interest possibility in that first movie that I think if they take it that direction, the sequels, they could be better. It doubles down on some of these things. And they inevitably get to a point to where that kind of happens. But the way that they double down on it, and then the way that her character has no growth in the sequels, no character growth whatsoever, she continues to make the same mistakes over and over. And that's what killed me, especially about the third one. I'm like, I cannot believe they did this with these movies.
Well, I have that one, the first one next, Kissing Booth. Oof.
Yes.
But we'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
The one I have after that is actually a comedy from last year called You People.
I need to add that. I didn't put that on my list. That movie stinks. Yeah, there we go.
It's terrible. And it bums me out because I actually think the two leads had like a good rom-com in them. Jonah Hill and Lauren London. I think that they had like decent chemistry, and I liked the fact that they were like approachable, like a normal looking couple, right? So that was good, but just nobody talks like this. No, like everybody that I know avoids political conversation like the plague. And if it gets brought up, you try to end the conversation as quickly as possible. These people virtue signaled in every conversation that they had. You're just like, you would never do this with the family of your prospective son and / daughter-in-law. You would never do that. I mean, maybe you'd slip up once and be like, sorry, that was awkward, kind of went to a weird place. Maybe. But the whole thing just felt incredibly phony. It was incredibly frustrating and not funny. Funny saves all. And if it had been funny, I would have been fine with it. Like it could have been like and also I feel like this whole sort of setup of, we've been doing this setup of this biracial, romance, whatever, since Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in the 60s. Like, you have to bring something new to this discussion, because 99% of people, at least that I know, are like, oh, great, you got engaged. Yay. Like, I don't know anybody that would be like, wow, I'm really concerned about you, dating the person in the race. Like, it's just, so it feels like extra phony. And the fact that there's all this talent is like so frustrating. And so, yeah, it was just like, it was very frustrating.
Yeah, I guess I'll say I liked them individually. I didn't like their chemistry. I didn't think they had very good chemistry in the movie. But I think as individual characters they worked, but it was their family situations that felt just very outdated. Like, this idea in 2023 doesn't work because it doesn't feel like, and maybe a couple of people, but not almost every character in the movie. You know what I mean? Exactly. And it's like they made
you might
it
have
like
that
this
one person in your family, or you're like, shut up.
Yeah,
but that's not the way this was.
Get out of La La Land. And I've met people like that, but not everybody. Not everybody. And to make Eddie Murphy unfunny takes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's managed to do it a lot in his career, but to make Eddie Murphy, Jonah Hill, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, all not funny.
That scene of her that they went for it at, I guess it was like the campfire or wherever it was. Yeah, I did not think that was funny whatsoever. No. I'm like, they are really just trying to be funny, and it's not. And like you said, when a comedy is shooting for the stars and misfiring on that level, and sometimes that's the worst kind of movie. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was with you. It was, and the story about the kiss, right? The kiss was CGI.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of COVID.
That made sense. That made sense to me though. Because I'm like, they probably didn't even want to kiss each other because I don't think they had any chemistry. Like, it's like,
I'm just saying, I appreciate that it was like approachable casting. Like, I don't have any. I like the fact that this is a couple I could relate to. And sure. I felt like there was a good rom-com. They had a good rom-com in them, but it just didn't work.
Yes, I'm with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what did you have next?
So my bottom movies are Kissing Booths, and I just actually added You People to my list because that was a heck of a pull by you. I cannot believe I didn't put that on there. I have a movie that I don't think is tragically bad, but I just thought it kind of embodied all of the cliches about the genre that I don't love and didn't do anything with them.
Yeah.
And that was Falling in Love. I thought it was and again, you can have, and I actually really like these two. I think they're good, but I didn't buy the chemistry. I didn't feel the spark. I thought the dialogue was so generic. I saw around every corner where it was going, and while he's a hunky guy and I like the accent, hunky guy, and I like the accent, I didn't buy it from him.
I do think, though, this is better than A Perfect Pairing. which I didn't have on my list, but
Okay.
that one, at least this one gives you some candy. Like at least he
It
has
does.
his shirt off like multiple
It does.
times. Like it's
Sure.
and then this is just like a very predictable movie. It's it would be like a serviceable Hallmark movie, but it gives you some Adam Demos eye candy. So it does get a little bit of a bump for me. But A Perfect Pairing doesn't even give you that. They spend the whole time just talking about wine and like what makes a great wine. And like I was like, are you kidding me? Do you think that we are watching the Adam Demos Netflix rom-com to learn about wine and how it has to be paired? No, we're not. And it was just like, what? Yeah. So I mean, but Adam Demos, he is, oh my gosh, he is beautiful.
I like him, and I just,
but yeah, they need to get him. Neither of these were great.
I think it was this specific story too. It was like the idea, we're going to ditch the city life, we're going to go to the rustic inn, and it's kind of like, I've seen this, and I've seen it much better than this.
Well, my last one, as far as the worst that we'll talk about, is was Your Place or Mine. Was my worst.
No, I didn't like that one either.
Yeah,
that one's right next for me.
Yeah, the thing is that I think Reese Witherspoon is. I think she just recently went through a divorce, and so I think she's kind of overthinking these rom-coms that she's been doing for like the last bunch, because she's trying to make them like, oh, like relationships are complicated and we need to talk it out and we need to like, and I guess that can be good, and you can, but the problem is that that's not really what we want. Like in a rom-com, we want the escapism, we want the fantasy, we want the, and this, like, I was just like, why is she not with Jesse Williams? Like, are you kidding me right now? I mean, Jesse Williams is one of the most attractive humans on the planet. And he's so charming in this, and you're just like, what? Why would you be with Ashton Kutcher? You don't even spend any time together in the movie. It's terribly written, terribly done. And I mean, there were some nice scenes of him with her daughter, and I
that was sweet.
That was okay, but you're just like, okay, the holiday worked because they met people in the places that they went, and they were this different person in the new place. Like that was the whole point. Absolutely. Right? And in this, it's just like, nope, we're not going to learn and grow as people. We're just gonna and I'm sorry, Ashton, you can't compete with Jesse Williams. What are you, crazy?
Well, and they never spend any time together in the movie. No, there's no time to build their relationship.
It's a terrible script.
It is an awful script, and while it did give him this sweet, like, oh, he's spending time with her daughter, and that's really sweet, that's like the only thing that he gets in the film, and that's not enough for me. Like, I have to have a little bit of chemistry, or at least feel the chemistry when they're talking to each other. I didn't even feel any of that. It's just like, I wasn't watching the characters. I was watching Reese Witherspoon and Ashton Kutcher. That's what it felt like for me. And so, bad script. Not sweet. It just kind of all the things wrong with the bad rom-com for me.
I'll probably post that worst of section as its own video. So if y'all watching that, then leave your comments. And if you're watching the best of, leave your comments, and make sure to check out both parts. And Austin, it's always a great time. Whenever I happen to catch you at a free moment, I'm like, schedule me in, because I just love talking to you so much. And how do people find you and follow you and all the stuff you do?
Yeah, you can all find me on YouTube, Austin Burke. I'm watching everything I can on Netflix and reviewing TV shows and of course talking movies. I'm on Letterboxd. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at The Burkinator. And speaking of the podcast game, just launched, myself and a guy by the name of Ryan Snelling, who used to do the Schmoes Know After Show. We launched a podcast called Movie Mode, which you can find on all podcasting platforms. And we have a YouTube channel. So if you guys are interested to add us into your probably already stacked rotation of movie podcasts, please go check us out, give us a rating, all those beautiful things. But Rachel, I'm going to have you on Movie Mode one of these days if you get some free time.
if you're going to do a Christmas in July episode, we can totally talk single all the way.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, we're going to have you on 100%. So if you
be
want to
fun.
hear more Rachel, come over to Movie Mode because she'll be there eventually.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. It only takes a second. So please, 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 if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support us, and the merch store. You can get all kinds of fun rom-com, including I Love Rom-Com shirts. So check that out. And, and thanks again. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.